Welcome to another dark exploration of Elder Scrolls lore. Today, we're descending into one of the most terrifying realms in all of Oblivion. We're going to explore what really happens in Sheogorath's realm, the Shivering Isles, where madness isn't a disease but a destination, and sanity is just a lie we tell ourselves until we can't anymore. They say madness is a blessing, but no one tells you that in the Shivering Isles, you don't choose madness. Madness chooses what's left of you when the colors finally stop making sense. This is the confession of someone who walked through that door in Niben Bay seeking answers about the Mad God, only to discover that the realm itself whispered back, "You're already here, you just haven't realized you never left." And if you genuinely enjoy this kind of dark storytelling, consider subscribing and liking the channel, but only if it truly resonates with you. They say madness is a blessing, but no one tells you that in the Shivering Isles, you don't choose madness. Madness chooses what's left of you when the colors finally stop making sense. I remember the exact moment I made the worst decision of my life. It was supposed to be just another day in Cyrodiil, sailing across Niben Bay, when I saw it. A door, not attached to anything, just standing there in the middle of the water like it had always belonged. Purple light bleeding from the cracks, and this sound, this whisper that felt like fingers crawling through my skull. Everyone on the boat saw it. The captain started turning the ship around, shouting about Daedric corruption, about how we needed to report it to the Mages Guild. But I couldn't look away. The door wanted me to see it. No, that's not right. The door wanted me to understand that I had already opened it, that I was already standing on the other side, and everything I thought was real was just a memory I hadn't finished forgetting yet. I jumped. The water was cold, but the door was warm when I touched it, warm like living skin. It opened before I could knock. The first thing that hit me on the other side wasn't the sight, it was the smell. Overripe sweetness mixed with decay, like flowers growing from rotting flesh, like honey fermenting in a corpse's mouth. The air tasted purple. I know that sounds insane, but in the Shivering Isles, air has flavor, and purple tastes like regret mixed with laughter you can't control. I was standing in a place called the Fringe, gray stone, twisted trees, bon toits, and this overwhelming sense that reality here operated on different rules. Rules written by someone who found logic offensive. A man approached me, dressed in formal clothing that belonged in a count's court, not in whatever nightmare dimension I'd stumbled into. His name was Haskill, and his eyes held the tired patience of someone who had watched 1,000 fools walk through that door. He told me I was in the realm of Sheogorath, the Daedric Prince of Madness. He said it like I should be honored, like stepping into the mind of an insane god was some kind of privilege. Haskill explained that Sheogorath wanted a champion, someone to help save his realm from something called the Greymarch. He made it sound simple. He made it sound survivable. I should have turned around right then, but the door was already gone. The Fringe was just the waiting room, Haskill explained. The real Isles lay beyond, split into two regions that reflected the two faces of madness itself. Mania to the north, where obsession blooms in colors that hurt to look at. Dementia to the south, where paranoia festers in marshes that remember every scream they've ever swallowed. He spoke about them the way a priest might describe heaven and hell, except both were hell, just different temperatures of it. Before I could enter the true Isles, I had to prove myself. There was a gatekeeper, a massive creature stitched together from corpses, guarding the gates of madness. Fighting it felt like punching a mountain made of meat. Every time I cut into it, the smell got worse, and I swear I could hear the dead people inside it still screaming. But I won. I killed it. I thought that made me strong. I didn't understand yet that in the Shivering Isles, strength is just another word for how long it takes you to break. When I finally crossed into the realm proper, I realized the sky itself was watching me. Not metaphorically, the sky had eyes, clouds that shifted into faces judging whether I belonged in Mania or Dementia, weighing my madness against some scale only gods understood. The ground beneath my feet pulsed like a heartbeat. Nothing was still. Nothing was ever truly solid. I chose to explore Mania first. I thought brightness meant safety. I was so wrong. The forests of Mania are made of giant mushroom trees that glow with bioluminescent colors that shouldn't exist in nature. Blues that taste like electricity, greens that smell like forgetting, purples that sound like children laughing in empty rooms. The trees don't just grow, they breathe, they watch. Some mortals who live there told me the trees remember every secret spoken beneath them, that they feed on confessions and grow taller on shame. The Golden Saints patrol Mania like religious zealots patrolling a temple. They call themselves Orioles, and they strut around in gleaming armor that reflects light like captured sunlight, convinced they are Sheogorath's chosen favorites. They speak to mortals the way you might address an insect you're too lazy to crush. Their beauty is dangerous, sharp-edged, the kind that cuts you if you stare too long. They radiating a violent perfection that made my teeth hurt. Every citizen I met in Mania spoke in riddles wrapped in enthusiasm. Their joy was so intense it felt like violence waiting to erupt. A man offered me cheese with the kind of fevered excitement usually reserved for religious experiences. A woman told me about her collection of butterflies, except she was collecting them inside her own body, letting them nest in her lungs because their wings tickled when she breathed. She said it like this was normal. In Mania, it probably was. Then I made my mistake. I crossed into Dementia. The border between Mania and Dementia isn't a line on a map. It's the moment you forget which version of yourself was real. The colors drain away like someone pulled a plug, and suddenly you're walking through marshes where the water is the color of old bruises. This place was called Shallow Grave, and it lived up to its name. Bodies half sunken in murky water, some of them still moving, still reaching, still trying to remember what it felt like to be alive. The dark seducers moved through Dementia like living shadows. They're called Mazkin, and their armor is as black as the paranoia that saturated every conversation in the city of Crucible. They don't trust anyone, not even each other, and they made it clear they expected everyone to betray everyone eventually. In Dementia, suspicion isn't a character flaw, it's a survival skill. The citizens here whispered instead of shouted. They flinched at sounds that didn't exist. One man told me his neighbor was plotting to steal his thoughts, so he started thinking in a language he invented, one word at a time, building sentences that made his brain bleed. He showed me the journal where he wrote them down. The words looked like screaming. I learned that beneath both Mania and Dementia runs something called the root system. It's not just underground tunnels. It's a massive living organism that connects every plant in the realm. Some people say it's Sheogorath's nervous system made manifest, that every tree is a neuron firing in the brain of a mad god. The gnarl, these tree-like creatures, tend to it like gardeners tending a garden that grows on suffering. But the real horror? I discovered that Sheogorath was cursed, that he was once Jyggalag, the Daedric Prince of Order. Before the other princes feared his power so much, they cursed him to become everything he despised: madness, chaos, unpredictability, and every era. At the end of time itself, something called the Greymarch occurs. The Greymarch is when Jyggalag returns, when order marches through madness like a disease, crystallizing everything, turning chaos into cold, perfect silence. The Knights of Order emerge from crystalline obelisks, their emotionless efficiency more terrifying than any demon. They don't hate, they don't rage, they simply delete existence with the clinical precision of someone correcting a mistake. And I learned something else, something that Haskell finally told me after I'd proven myself through countless trials. Sheogorath knew the Greymarch was coming. He knew he would transform back into Jyggalag, that he would personally destroy everything he'd built. That's why he needed a champion, not to save him, to replace him. What do you think really happened here? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because the truth gets stranger than you can imagine. I met Sheogorath himself in the palace at New Sheoth. He sat on a throne that seemed to be made of frozen screams, toying with a mortal's sanity like a child playing with a bug. He offered me cheese. His obsession with cheese is legendary, but watching him discuss it with the same passion others reserve for loved ones, you realize his mind makes connections that break reality. He talked about genocide and dairy products in the same breath, with the same enthusiasm. I watched him casually turn a woman into a screaming pile of intestines just because she wasn't interesting anymore. He did it while smiling, while offering me more cheese, while explaining that boredom was the only true sin in his realm. The worst part? I understood him. After enough time in the Shivering Isles, his logic started making a terrible kind of sense. The citizens of the Shivering Isles worship Sheogorath because they have no choice. Their sanity was the price of admission to his realm. And once you're here, once you've breathed the air and tasted the colors and felt the ground pulse beneath your feet, you can't go back to thinking in straight lines. Your mind learns to bend, then it learns to break. Then it learns that breaking and bending are the same thing. I completed trials for Sheogorath that made no logical sense. He asked me to solve problems that had no solutions, to make choices where every option was equally wrong, to embrace contradictions until my brain bled trying to hold two opposing truths at the same time. I helped reignite the cold flame of Agnon by watching golden saints and dark seducers tear each other apart at a place called Sylarn, their commanders sacrificing themselves to light altars that fed a flame no one could explain. I chose to side with the Dark Seducers, and their commander, Greymarch Ulfri, offered her life like it was an honor. Maybe in the Shivering Isles, death is the only promotion that matters. I became Duke of Dementia by assassinating the paranoid Duchess Syl in her own palace, sneaking through corridors where the walls whispered secrets about everyone who'd ever walked them. She knew I was coming. She'd planned for every possibility. But in Dementia, paranoia becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You prepare for betrayal so thoroughly that you create the very traitors you fear. The Grummites tried to kill me in the swamps. These amphibious tribal creatures attacked on sight, their crude weapons dripping with toxins that didn't just poison your body. They poisoned your thoughts, made you see things that weren't there, made you forget which memories belong to you and which ones belong to the person you killed to survive. I still don't know if some of my memories are real or if they're just echoes from Grummite venom working through my veins. I descended into the root system itself, crawling through tunnels that pulsed like arteries, amber deposits bleeding from the walls like crystallized madness. The gnarl that guard these tunnels don't speak, but they communicate something worse than words, a knowing, an understanding that you're inside something alive, something vast, something that has been growing beneath the isles for millennia, connecting every tree, every plant, every thought that grows wild in this realm. Some scholars theorize that if you destroyed the root system, you could cure the isles, dethrone Sheogorath, restore order. But I walked through those tunnels. I felt them breathe. Destroying the root wouldn't cure anything. It would just kill the patient while the disease laughs. Then came the moment that changed everything. I returned to Sheogorath's palace, and he was different. The manic energy was gone. His eyes held something I'd never seen before. Clarity, terror. He explained that our time had run out. The Greymarch was beginning. He was about to become Jyggalag. He told me to leave because the next time he saw me, he wouldn't recognize me and he would kill me without hesitation. I watched Sheogorath vanish, not die, not transform, just cease to exist in a way that left a hole in reality where he'd been standing. The throne sat empty. The realm started to shake. Haskill appeared, calm as ever, explaining that if the throne of madness remained empty while Jyggalag walked the realm, everything would be destroyed. But there was a solution. The staff of Sheogorath, the symbol of power in this realm. If someone could recreate it, they could take the throne. They could become Sheogorath. They could face Jyggalag. He was talking about me. Haskell sent me to Knife Point Hollow, ruins northwest of New Sheoth that had once been the great library of Jyggalag, the place where all knowledge in creation had been cataloged, where every action that would ever happen had been predicted and recorded. Sheogorath burned it. He couldn't tolerate the idea that choice was an illusion, that free will was just a story we tell ourselves while following scripts written in eternal books. But he couldn't destroy everything. He couldn't bring himself to kill Daius. Daius sat in those ruins like a prisoner sentenced to forever. He'd been Jyggalag's chamberlain, the keeper of that impossible library, and Sheogorath cursed him with immortality and locked him away. Not to punish him, to preserve him, because even the mad god couldn't bear to destroy the knowledge Daius represented. I found Daius sitting on a throne in the darkness, and he told me he'd been waiting for me, that he knew I would come, that my arrival was as predictable as everything else, because some patterns never change, even in realms where chaos is law. He explained what I needed to recreate the staff, the Eye of Sirta and a branch from the Tree of Shades. Sirta led a cult called the Apostles who believed Sheogorath had abandoned them during the last Greymarch. She'd seen him vanish, seen the truth, and decided the mad god was unfit to rule. I found her in the Howling Halls, and when I told her I needed her eye, she understood. She gave it willingly, not out of faith, but out of exhaustion. Sometimes the greatest mercy you can offer a madwoman is letting her stop seeing. The Tree of Shades in Milchar was worse. To reach it, I had to descend into a place called the Grove of Reflection and face my own shadow. Not a metaphor, an actual shadow version of myself, equipped with all my armor, wielding all my spells, knowing every weakness because it was me, just inverted. Fighting yourself is like arguing with a mirror. You can't win, you can only shatter. I took the screaming branch from that tree. It was called screaming for a reason. The wood wailed in my hands, and I swear I could hear every secret I'd ever told myself, every lie I'd believed, every truth I'd tried to forget. I brought both items back to Daius. He crafted the staff with movements that seemed less like smithing and more like surgery, like he was operating on reality itself. When he handed it to me, I felt its weight, not physical weight, the weight of becoming something other than human, the weight of wearing a god's responsibilities like a coat made of other people's madness. He told me to take it to the font of madness in Sheogorath's throne room, to soak it in the waters that flow from the heart of the realm. I did. The staff drank those waters like a dying man drinks rain, and I felt power surge through me. Not power like strength, power like surrender, the power to stop fighting against impossibility and just become it. If you've ever wondered what choice you would make in a situation like this, tell me in the comments, because I'm still not sure I chose anything. Maybe the choice chose me. The Knights of Order began appearing throughout the Isles, crystalline warriors emerging from obelisks that sprouted from the ground like geometric tumors. They killed without emotion, without hesitation, without anything resembling humanity. They were perfect soldiers in a perfect war against everything imperfect. Citizens who'd lived in the Isles for centuries, who'd survived countless dangers, fell before them like wheat before a scythe made of logic. Some citizens betrayed Sheogorath and became priests of order, chanting rituals that summoned more knights, thinking that serving Jyggalag might save them. It never did. Order doesn't save you. It just erases you more efficiently. I defended the realm because I had no choice, or because I'd made a choice so long ago I'd forgotten it was a choice. I helped the Dark Seducers defend their wellspring at Pinnacle Rock when the Knights of Order tried to corrupt it. The wellspring is where the Mazkin are reborn from the waters of Oblivion. Lose it, and you lose them forever. The battle was chaos, and the knights just kept coming, emotionless, relentless, perfect. Then Jyggalag himself appeared. He looked like a giant knight of order, except impossibly tall, impossibly perfect, moving with the kind of mathematical precision that makes organic life seem like a mistake. His voice held no emotion, no hate, no anger, just the cold certainty that madness was an error he was correcting. He told me I wasn't a Daedric prince, that the staff didn't make me a god, that I was just a mortal wearing trappings I didn't understand. He was right, but I fought him anyway. The battle felt less like combat and more like arguing with inevitability. He regenerated health. He knocked me down with gestures that bent space. He used shock magic that felt like reality itself rejecting my existence. Every time I hit him, it felt like punching mathematics. But I kept fighting, not because I believed I could win, because I'd come too far to stop believing in impossible things. I beat him, somehow, the Daedric Prince of Order, the being who'd predicted every possible outcome, lost to a mortal who'd learned to stop making sense. Jyggalag yielded. He told me the Greymarch was ended, that for millennia, this drama had unfolded the same way, with him conquering the Isles only to transform back into Sheogorath and rebuild. But this time was different. This time, I'd broken the cycle. He was free to wander Oblivion in his true form, free to finally be what he'd always been, and I was left holding the throne. If this story has kept you listening this far, and you want more of these dark confessions from Skyrim, hit that subscribe button. It tells me someone out there is still paying attention to warnings like these. Jyggalag named me the new Prince of Madness before he departed. He said it without ceremony, without congratulation, just cold acknowledgement of a fact. I now held the mantle of madness. The realm was mine. He said I might grow to my station. Then he vanished into the voids of Oblivion, finally free of the curse that had bound him for eons. I stood alone in the courtyard of New Sheoth Palace, surrounded by the bodies of golden saints and dark seducers who died defending a realm that wasn't even real in the way mortals understand reality. The staff of Sheogorath pulsed in my hands, and I felt something happening to my thoughts. They were fragmenting, scattering, reforming into patterns that made terrible sense. I walked to the throne and sat down. The moment my body touched that seat, I understood everything. And understanding everything is the worst curse you can imagine. The Shivering Isles aren't just a realm. They're a mirror. Every mortal who enters doesn't go mad. They were already mad. The Isles just show them what they've been hiding from themselves. The citizens who live here, who seem insane, they're the only honest people in existence. They stopped pretending their thoughts made sense. They stopped pretending reality follows rules. Mania isn't happiness. It's obsession stripped of the lies we tell ourselves about passion. Dementia isn't paranoia. It's the truth about how much we fear each other, exposed without the social samavspalsye. Contracts that make us pretend we trust anyone. I felt the realm reshape itself according to my fractured will. The trees in Mania grew taller, their colors bleeding into shades that hurt mortal eyes. The marshes of Dementia deepened, swallowing more memories, more screams, more truths people tried to drown. And I couldn't tell if I was creating beauty or horror. In the Shivering Isles, they're the same thing. Haskell approached me, bowing with that same patient contempt he'd shown when I first arrived. Because he knew. He'd always known. He was a vestige himself, a mortal who'd mantled Sheogorath in some previous Greymarch, left behind as chamberlain to serve whoever wore the crown next. He looked at me with the tired recognition of someone watching a pattern repeat, watching another fool think they could wear godhood without being consumed by it. I tried to hold on to who I'd been. I tried to remember my name, my life before the door in Niben Bay. But memories in the Shivering Isles don't stay still. They warp, they merge with dreams and fears and possibilities that never happened but feel more real than things that did. Was I from Cyrodiil, or had I always been here, just pretending to remember somewhere else? The worst part wasn't losing myself. The worst part was enjoying it. I started to understand Sheogorath's obsession with cheese. It wasn't about cheese, it was about fixating on something arbitrary, something meaningless, and making it the center of existence. Because if nothing means anything, then everything means everything, and you might as well choose cheese as your holy text. The randomness is the point. The absurdity is the prayer. I walked through my realm and citizens bowed, some in mania with manic enthusiasm, their joy so intense it looked like seizures, some in dementia with fearful reverence, convinced I could read their treacherous thoughts. Both were right. I could read their thoughts, not because I was telepathic, because their thoughts were my thoughts. Every citizen in the Shivering Isles is just another fragment of Sheogorath's mind, given flesh and set loose to argue with itself. I discovered that the root system isn't just connected to plants, it's connected to consciousness itself. Every thought in the realm flows through those underground tunnels like blood through veins. The gnarl don't tend to roots. They tend to the physical manifestation of collective insanity, pruning away thoughts that grow too orderly, nurturing the ones that spiral into beautiful meaninglessness. I understood why Sheogorath kept Daius alive, not to preserve knowledge, to preserve the memory of what he'd lost. Jyggalag was order, logic, predictability, everything Sheogorath despised, but somewhere deep in the mad god's fractured psyche, he mourned what he'd been. Daius was his grief made immortal, a living reminder that even gods can be destroyed by becoming something they hate. I began testing mortals who wandered into my realm. Not cruelly, or maybe cruelly, but with purpose. I learned that madness is mercy. The people who broke fastest were the ones who clung hardest to sanity, the ones who accepted the impossible, who let go of logic, who embraced contradiction. They survived. They thrived. They became citizens. They became me. I turned a man into a chicken once, just to see if he'd panic. He didn't. He started laying golden eggs and founded a religion around breakfast. In the Shivering Isles, transformation isn't punishment. It's evolution. It's becoming what you always were underneath the flesh that lied about your shape. Time moves differently when you're a Daedric Prince. Centuries feel like moments. Moments stretch into eternities. I watched mortal champions come and go, each one thinking they were special, thinking they were the first to walk through my door. I greeted them all with the same enthusiasm, offered them the same cheese, watched them solve problems I'd designed to have no solutions, just to see how creatively they'd fail. Some succeeded, most didn't. Failure is more interesting anyway. I discovered the true horror of mantling a god. It's not that you lose yourself, it's that you find yourself, the version of you that was always there, hidden under civilization and sanity and the lies we tell ourselves to function in ordered society. Sheogorath didn't make me mad. He showed me I'd always been mad. We all are. We're just really good at pretending otherwise. The Golden Saints and Dark Seducers continued their eternal rivalry, fighting at Skyrim over altars that didn't matter for reasons that made perfect sense if you stopped trying to make sense of them. I let them fight. They needed the conflict. Without it, they'd have to confront the fact that they're both serving the same mad god, both pieces of the same fractured psyche, both arguing with themselves while calling it war. Every soul that enters the Shivering Isles becomes another note in my endless, discordant symphony. Some are screaming, some are laughing, some are both at once because they've learned that screaming and laughing use the same muscles, just different intentions, and intention is meaningless when you're made of madness. I started leaving pieces of myself in mortal minds, visiting emperors in their dreams. Pelagius III, the Mad Emperor, became one of my favorite projects. I lived in his insanity for centuries, decorating his neuroses like a house I was renovating. His paranoia was exquisite. His delusions were artwork. When the Dragonborn eventually found me there during my vacation in his dead mind, I was almost sad to leave, but the Isles called me back. They always do. You can't escape your own realm when your realm is inside your head and your head is inside your realm. Sitting on this throne of madness, I finally understand what the Shivering Isles really are. They're not a place, they're a question. The question every mortal asks when they look in a mirror and wonder if the person staring back is real or just very good at pretending. The question you ask when you realize that sanity is just agreed upon madness, rules we follow because everyone promised to follow them together, and the moment someone breaks that promise, the whole illusion shatters. The Shivering Isles don't drive you insane. They show you the insanity that was always there, wearing your face, speaking with your voice, making choices you thought were yours, but were really just patterns you inherited from people who inherited them, from people who made them up one day and forgot they were invented. And now, sitting on this throne, feeling my thoughts splinter into 1,000 conversations with myself, I finally understand the greatest joke Sheogorath ever told. The one he's been telling since the moment Jyggalag was cursed to become him. The joke is this: there's no difference between order and chaos. They're the same thing viewed from different angles. Jyggalag tried to predict everything, to catalog all possibilities, to eliminate choice by proving it was an illusion. Sheogorath embraces randomness, celebrates unpredictability, destroys patterns, just to prove nothing is inevitable. But they both control. They both shape reality according to their will. They both turn mortals into pawns. One does it with crystalline precision. One does it with laughter and cheese. The method differs. The result is identical. I am Sheogorath now, or I was always Sheogorath, and the mortal who walked through that door in Niben Bay was just another mask I wore because eternity gets boring when you're honest about being a god. I can't remember which is true. Both are true. Neither is true. Truth is just another word I've learned to make meaningless. The realm pulses around me, breathing through the root system, thinking through its citizens, dreaming through the spaces between Mania and Dementia, where reality goes to forget what it was supposed to be. And I love it. I love every broken, beautiful, terrifying piece of it, because I'm finally free to be mad, free to stop pretending sanity was anything but a cage we built from fear. The next time you feel your thoughts spiral into patterns that don't make sense, the next time reality seems thin around the edges, the next time you look at the world and think, this is insane, all of it. None of it makes sense. Remember, you're right. And somewhere in the Shivering Isles, I'll be waiting with a smile and some cheese, ready to welcome you home to the madness you've been running from your entire life. Because in the end, that's all the Shivering Isles really are. Home for everyone who stopped lying to themselves. Home for everyone brave enough or broken enough to admit that the voice in their head asking questions isn't an intruder. It's who they've always been, finally loud enough to be heard above the noise of sanity. And that's the real horror, isn't it? Not that madness exists, but that it's the only thing that ever was.